Okay, I want to show you how to get a very simple customized shape through a draping technique. We're basically going to find the fabric that we want to get rid of and create either seams or darts with this. What you'll need to start, if you don't have a dress form works great, but if you don't have one, you can do this on your own body. All you need to do is wear some tight fitting clothing, a full shirt with a high neckline and some pants. Nothing too baggy, it needs to be well fitted. And you can pin this fabric right to your body. So you need to start off with a piece of fabric that is wide enough to go around the entire circumference of your body. And it has to be able to go around the biggest part of your body without pulling or dragging any of the fabric. Just a perfect cylindrical fit over the widest part of your body. For me, my hips are bigger than my bust, so this part would be fitted nicely or closely fitted, not exactly fitted, but closely, and then this part would be a little more loose because I want it exactly cylindrical to fit the biggest part of my body. After you get that piece of fabric cut out or ripped out, it needs to also be a fabric that you don't care about, a muslin fabric like this or an old sheet, something that you don't mind marking on, because this is going to act as your first sample in a way, but technically this is draping. So it's very important to have your center front line drawn in there. You want to make sure this part, this center front, is exactly straight up and down, your straight grain line, okay? So you want to pin this in first. Make sure you have this line directly on center front of either your dress form or your body. And just pin it in about 3 spots. You can do at the top and in the waist and then closer to the bottom, just so you know it's not shifting or moving around on you. Then establish the side. These are the 3 areas that need to be on a very straight grain line. So this is why we have a perfect cylindrical piece of fabric around our bodies. A straight grain line needs to be established at the side seam. So pin that in. I'm just going to do 2 because I don't want to take away this yet. I just want to pin it right under the arm and right at the biggest part of the hip. So I'm establishing that. That's in a straight grain line. And then also establish your center back seam. So I'm going to pin this right at center back, and then we can get started. So this is for a very simple chemise dress or a slip dress. You can do this either by putting some spaghetti straps up here or some elastic like a tube top or a halter version, but this will give you the basic shape you need, a custom fit to whatever you're trying to fit, another person, your own body, or a dress form if you have it. So what we're looking to do here is find the shapes of fabric, the amounts of fabric we want to get rid of. And I'm not going to fit this perfectly. I want a little bit of give. So it's not going to be directly on the dress form. I want it to have a little bit of shape but still be able to move around and slip around on the body. All right? So we're going to begin by pinching out the fabric right on the princess seams. So this is the typical area you would have a seam or a dart, and this is arbitrary. You can choose this. Normally a dart placement is either 3 to 4 inches away from center front, so you would have a dart and a dart about like that, but it is your choice as a designer. The smaller, the closer together the darts are, it sort of plays an illusion on the eye and makes the waist look smaller. And likewise, if they are farther apart, they make the waist look bigger. You can do this with darts or full seams, full princess seams all the way down the dress. I can show you both, but ultimately I'm going to do seams that go all the way down the dress. So again, going back to pinching out this extra fabric, and I just want to find that little bit of fabric that I would need to get rid of to fit this shape right here. And it's not a lot. This is just a tiny bit up here. I'm only concerning myself with one side. I never want to drape two sides because you want it to be exactly the same. You're not going to get a very symmetrical design if you do both and then take both off and use both sides. You want to get information from one side of your front and one side of your back, and then you can transfer it to the right or left. So only concern yourself with one side of your front and one side of your back. So moving to underneath the bust, I'm going along that princess seam. I'm going to pull out fabric from right about here. And it's good that you establish these center front pins, because when you pinch out fabric like this, it tends to pull a little more from that side, and that's not going to give you an accurate read of how much fabric you actually need to get rid of. So I'm going to continue pinching out my fabric. Remember, I want it to be a little bit loose, not like sausage skin, just I want some shape, not a bodycon dress. Now I'm going to finish pinning below, going down the hip. And I can see about where it wants to stop, which is a little bit right here. Okay, so I'm going to quit there. This can either turn into a fisheye dart right here, or it can turn into a full seam. I'm going to go to my side seam now, and I'm going to fit this a little bit less closely than I did that front princess seam. There, and that's enough information to tell me where to stop my shaping. This won't matter up here because we're going to draw a neckline and shape this anyway, so don't worry about that. Now we need our back princess seam. It's just the same as all of them. You don't really need to see me do this again. It's the same. You might even want a little bit of shape at center back, but not much. You could pinch out a little bit, but that's for an extremely fitted dress. Normally the center back is just going to be a straight shot, just very flat on center back. But the lower back does have some shape right here, so you could pinch out a little bit of fabric here if you wanted. Now you're going to take a marker and start to draw in your darts or seams. And all you want to do is draw a line or some dots on either side of the wedge of fabric that you pulled out. So sort of right where you pinned the fabric together, and be sure to get it on both sides of the wedge of fabric. So you can see I drew all the way down exactly where they are pinned. I'm going to do it on the other side. And you can clean this up later. You're going to lay this flat after you take this off, and you can make it very smooth and a nice transition. I do want to connect these two though. Give yourself a nice connecting line like so. And do the same for all pieces that you are getting rid of, essentially. And once you're finished making your lines where you've pinned your fabric, extend these lines all the way down if you're making a full seamed, princess seamed dress. If you're just doing darts, you can end your dart right at the point. It's usually about an inch below the apex, the largest part of the bust. So give yourself a dart point on the start and finish, and you would be done at that point. I'm doing princess seams, so I'm going to extend this line all the way down after I've stopped pinching out this fabric, and it's going to be exactly parallel with the straight grain. So just continue that line all the way down directly below the fabric we've pinched out, and be sure to be exactly parallel with the straight grain in the center front seam, center front line. Do the same with all side seam and back. So you would extend this down here, and this is going to be your side seam. Now, you need to have an opening somewhere. You need to have a closure. How are you going to get into this dress? Is it going to be an opening at center back where you have like a zipper, or you could have a zipper at the side seam? You could have a really cute button-up dress where you have a button placket. Usually this type of dress is going to have some sort of zipper in the back. You do want to give yourself a full inch of seam allowance when you're sewing that zipper hardware in. And zippers don't want to go over the biggest part of your butt. Go to the high hip, which is about right here. Okay, so your zipper would start all the way at the top and end about at the high hip. It's got to let the dress open up enough for your body to get into. Next, you can draw in your neckline. What kind of neckline do you want on this? Maybe you have it straight across with some spaghetti straps. Or maybe you want a slight V. Maybe you want a bikini style top. I'm going to give us a sweetheart neckline. So just a little heart-shaped bustier almost. And then give yourself the rest of your dress. Be sure to be generous right here at the side boob. If you give yourself too little, it never works out. You want to give yourself enough fabric to hold in everything. And then just continue that line. You can go to a lower back if you want. That would be fully pinched in right here if I had finished that. And you're basically just drawing the shape of your dress on there. So once you take this off and lay it out flat, you have the shapes of your pattern pieces. You're gonna, if you are doing the same idea that I'm following through with, which is having a princess seam, seams that go all the way down the dress, rather than doing the darts, you would cut these free of each other. You would have one piece for your front, you would have one piece for your side front, you would have one piece for your side back, and you would have one piece for your center back. And then everything would mirror itself. So essentially you're going to have 7 pieces because your front is going to be one piece. If there was a seam here, you would have 8 pieces, but because this is no seam right here, it's going to be a 7-piece gore dress. That is basically it. You need to think about how you're going to finish off this edge, whether you need to put a facing on there or just turn the edge over and sew. Always things look better with a facing for sure. But also, this is not going to stay up on its own if you don't have some sort of structure helping, like boning in there. Or if you had a straight across top, you could put some elastic right here. Otherwise, just make some spaghetti straps. The video for making rouleau or spaghetti straps, basically straying out of fabric, that video is up on my channel as well. So watch that if that's what you're trying to do. I hope this helps. Also choose your hemline, draw in where you want the hem to end, and then you're basically finished. Use these pieces of fabric once you've cut them free to make patterns out of them. You can transfer the fabric 2 patterning paper so you can add seam allowance around every piece. Every piece needs a 1/2 inch seam allowance besides your center back pieces. Those need a full inch for your zipper if that's the route you're going. If you're not going to transfer these to patterning paper, you do need to be extra mindful when you put these pieces on your fabric. You have to cut extra seam allowance. Just have an eye for a 1/2 inch seam allowance and cut it around your fabric that you've draped. You also need to be able to true these up. Make them pretty and smooth. Make the curves organic looking. You don't want any dramatic angles or angles that don't resemble the body. Okay, so they should be very organic and smooth. So when you have them flat on the table, draw nice pretty curves. All right, that's it. I hope this helps, and good luck sewing.